If you look at a map of Paraguay or look at a map of South America for that matter, you'll see that getting from Paraguay to Uruguay, if you're going overland, can be potentially quite tricky. How do you do it? Where do you go? What do you do? We're following the Lonely Planet, and at the time, one thing that the Lonely Planet said was that to traverse the north of Uruguay was pretty much impossible. Not a lot going on there. Bus connections are a pain in the backside. Basically, you're not really going to miss out on much. As with things like that, the minute someone says don't do it, it's like a wet paint sign, isn't it? The minute someone says don't do it, you've got to do it just to see what happens. So we decided that we should, in good faith, try and traverse the northern plains of Uruguay by public transport. But first, we had to get into a sensible place in Uruguay. This involved a lot of research. This involved going through Lonely Planets, looking at bus times, looking at what's going on. We decided that the best thing to do would be to pop along to the southern border of Paraguay, hop along into Argentina, into a place called Posadas, get a bus down to Concordia, which is on the Argentinian-Uruguayan border. And then from there, I get a taxi or something across to a place called Salto in Uruguay. That's what we knew we had to do. But having read through the Lonely Planet, it mentioned about Paraguay's only UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is the Ruinas de Jesus, or it's a mission in the butt end of nowhere, basically, and ruins in effect. Very difficult to get to. Certainly not the remotest thing in the world. There are many more remoter, if that is a word, more remote sites, UNESCO World Heritage Sites than this one. But this is certainly one of the least visited in the world, just because it's not the easiest of places to get to. It's in a little tiny town, probably not even a town, a village, called Jesus de Tavarangue, which is just off one of the main roads in Paraguay, where the nearest place of any significance is Encarnacion. Encarnacion being on the border between Paraguay and Argentina, on the Paraná River. We got into Encarnacion after a bonkers bus journey. Paraguayan buses literally stop everywhere. You get no consistency. The only thing consistent about Paraguayan buses is that they will stop everywhere. You might pick someone up on the street, the bus goes 10 metres, stops, picks up someone else. It's got to be a better system, a better way of doing it. But, we got used to it after a while. We made two errors with trying to visit the least used or least visited, one of the most least visited sites, UNESCO sites in Latin America, if not the world. We didn't plan properly for the day. We didn't realise how difficult it could be. I think we're a bit daft, so we hadn't taken much liquid, and we certainly hadn't taken food at all. We knew that we had to get a bus down to a place called Trinidad. Again, a village on a main road on Route 6 in the south end of Paraguay. So we knew we had to get a bus there, and then we had to basically take a left, and there was this road up to Jesus de Tavarangue, and pretty much the Lonely Planet and the person in the hostel said a Collectivo, which is like pretty much a minibus, a Collectivo should come by and pick you up, because there's one scheduled for the morning, there's one scheduled for the afternoon. There's only a couple a day because it's not exactly a popular route, not a lot to do there. A Collectivo might turn up, might not turn up. If not, you're looking at 5-10 kilometre walk each way. We got off the main bus at Trinidad, not a problem. Started walking up this road on the left. About 10 minutes later, a Collectivo has turned up. We've popped on the Collectivo, headed up to Jesus de Tavarangue. No problem at all. It's about 25 degrees again. It's roasting. Again, silly us, we've had a big breakfast, but we weren't anticipating being out all day. So rookie error, always be planned, always be prepared for your days out. Popped off in Jesus. We knew where the ruins were. You could see them. They're at the far west of the town. So we walked up. It's desolate. It's quiet. The sun's shining. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's one of those really great days. We got to the ruins. Surprise, surprise. I mean, there is no one there. We looked at the guest book. People that can sign in, sign out if they want, and we opened it up. And we were the first people to visit in just over a week, assuming that everyone that turns up signs in and signs out. If that is the case, we're the first people to visit there for a week. It's a lovely place. It's a site with remains of a mission from about the 1600s. Talking of which, if you've never seen the film The Mission with Robert De Niro, highly recommend watching it. It's incredibly insightful, quite tearful as well actually, but good film. There was nothing there. I mean, yes, there were ruins, and it was like looking at an old ruined church in, Europe. Quite fascinating, especially the type of, brick and whatnot. You're walking along the remains. There was no one there. There's no CCTV. There's no guards or anything like that. So we should or shouldn't have done, but we were climbing up and down on the rocks, not being dangerous or anything like that. We're just climbing up and down, having a laugh, having fun, enjoying how desolate the place was. Also enjoying the fact that we were pretty much the first people there for over a week. Brought us a sense of satisfaction as well. We probably ended up just spending a couple of hours there, enjoying the sun, enjoying the ambience, enjoying absolutely nothing. But we realised we'd hit a problem. And that was, for some reason, because neither of us had taken our wallets with us, although we'd taken some cash with us, we realised that we only had enough cash to actually get back to Encarnacion. No cash for food. We knew what the bus fares and the Collectivo fares were, but we had no cash for food. We had no cash for water either. And when you're in the middle of nowhere, that's really not good. So we left the sites, kind of walked back into town, and we had a bit of an issue. It's about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we knew that a Collectivo was meant to be there about after 2, 3 o'clock. We knew that was the case. We waited. Nothing. Kept waiting. Nothing. Gets to about 3:30. Still waiting. Not a lot happening. And it's getting to the time where if you're going to be faced with a 5-10 kilometre trek back down the road to get to the main road to get the bus back, it's the sort of time where you've got to start moving. We gave it 5 minutes. Bear in mind, again, it's a tiny little, sort of village, small town. You can hear everything for miles. Not a lot's going on. So we sat there and said, right, we'll give it 5 minutes. And then we'll have to march. Bear in mind at this time, you're getting pissed off because it's hot. You've not got water. You've not got food. Again, that's our own fault. So we've definitely learned something from this lesson. Just about to get up off the town hall steps. That's where we are because it was in a bit of shade. We can hear something in the background. It sounded like a motor. Not a car, definitely not a car. It sounded like a motor. It sounded like a Collectivo. We weren't sure. Can hear it coming closer. So this is exciting. And then about 5 blocks away, I think it's relatively flat there, we just saw this Collectivo come out of the middle of nowhere, about an hour late, come out of the middle of nowhere, scenes of rejoicing, scenes of just ultimate scenes, woo, yeah, it's going to be easier to get back to Encarnacion. The Collectivos come round, we flagged it down, we got back to Encarnacion, and we've done something that we probably shouldn't have done. So we always said, we like getting involved in the culture when we're away, and that includes the food, eat what the locals eat, etc. Now, for some reason, Encarnacion, don't ask me why or how, although it's on a river, it has a river beach, which is nice, and on that was a big massive Burger King. By the time we got back, got to the hostel, picked up some cash for food, as well as gulping down a litre or two of water. Had a massive fat Burger King. It's probably one of the best things I've ever tasted, just because of the circumstances of the day. Definitely not how the locals do it, but it felt good and it was on a river beach. Anyway, all of that being said, the sights at Jesus de Tavarangue, it's desolate, it's in the butt end of nowhere. It's lovely to see. It really, really is. For the peace, for the ambience. Highly, highly recommend it. The following morning in Encarnacion, we were kind of figuring out how to get down to Salto. We knew the route we needed to do. We weren't sure on Argentinian bus times. We couldn't find any information. And to make matters worse, it was a Sunday. So not a lot going on. The hostel had organised a bus to go from Encarnacion over to Posadas, to the bus station there. Including going across the bridge there, getting all your visas and whatnot sorted out. Went across there, got into Posadas bus station. You're talking, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Got to the bus station, looked for the times of the buses to Concordia. The next one's at 10 o'clock. It's Aaron, it's myself, and it's Ewan from Asuncion. We decided to travel all down to Salto together. We've hit the realisation that it's 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon in Argentina. We're in a bus station in the butt end of nowhere. Bar that, we're next to a shopping mall. We really have no option here, apart from to wait 9 hours to get an overnight bus to Concordia, which will get us in about 7 in the morning. Not ideal. What the deuce do you do for 9 hours in a bus station? Well, a couple of things. Number one, we'd heard of a thing called Dollar Azul. Now, the Argentinian economy, not really well run at the best of times, but we'd heard stories from people in Paraguay and even in Brazil about Dollar Azul. Basically, you take your US dollars, you head over to Argentina, and rather than getting however many dollars it was for a peso, you could probably get a lot more. Okay, this is good fun. So in limited Spanish, a couple of us are walking around the desolate streets of Posadas asking people, Dollar Azul, and getting all these very strange looks. We played a lot of cards in the bus station. We also took trips to go to the supermarket, where luckily it turned out that only one of us had a working credit card. Although we were paying on credit card, for some reason the machines in the bus station, the machines in the supermarket, the supermercado, didn't like hardly any of our cards. So one of us ended up doing a big shop. It was like Rio de Janeiro all over again. There's too much cake and crap. But we're settled with food, and we just pissed away time at the bus station playing cards, getting a little bit irritable, also figuring that the electric at the bus station didn't work, so we had to preserve phone battery and all that stuff as well. Up to Concordia. Got the overnight bus, took about 9 hours. It was all right, not bad, quite comfortable. Again, the bus system in Latin America is very, very good, regardless of what country you go to. We popped off at Concordia. In the bus station, about 7:30, and we looked at the buses to Salto. Now, although Salto and Concordia are across from each other on the Uruguay River, you still have to go out of Concordia, pretty much head north, go across the bridge there, and then head back down into Salto. So it's a bit like if you're familiar with Portsmouth and Gosport, for example, they're pretty much opposite each other. You can get a ferry, but if you're driving, for example, you have to go all the way up A27, A32, back down into Gosport. This was pretty much similar, apart from the fact there wasn't even a boat between the two countries. You had to go over the bridge over the Uruguay River. So we're in Concordia, 7:30 in the morning. We're a bit groggy. We've been sat in bus stations, we've been sat on the bus. We looked at the bus time to Salto, and It was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Bear in mind, we're trying to be as cost effective as possible. That's the mentality we were in at the time. Looked at the bus times, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's about $2. So we're like, oh dear, don't really want to wait. We said, look, let's go grab a coffee. So I think it was Aaron and myself that went for a walk into Concordia, stretched the legs. We grabbed the coffee, came back to the bus station, and the three of us had a quick chat. It's like, look, we've just wasted pretty much a day at a bus station in Argentina. How much is a taxi going to be across to Salvador? And we started talking to a couple of cab drivers. Guy said that he would do it for $6 a person, which again, when we looked at it, it was okay. Well, that's it's going to be $6 for three of us on the bus, $2 each, or we pay triple the amount, but it's only $6. But the thing is, we can get there quicker. We can get into Salvador, and crack on with going to the thermal springs, which is why we wanted to go there. So after deliberating, we popped in a cab, headed over to Salvador. In hindsight, it's the best $6. Some of the best $6 you've ever spent. Headed over there, got settled in, and we got dropped off in Salvador. We had no accommodation booked, so it was all a bit last minute. So we got dropped off, and we said, right, okay, well, we know roughly where we know we can be. Let's head there. So, been dropped off. Thank you to the cabbie. Gone walking pretty much to the other side of town to find a hostel. That again, we're following the Lonely Planet. This is where it recommends that we go. So we got to the other side of town, half-hour walk. Everyone's got big bags. Still got the cake. We get to the place and there's naff all there. There's nothing there. Right, this is a bit strange. What's going on here? Looked at the map. Looked at where we are. Looked at the map again, and we realised, much to our horror, that actually we'd been dropped off about a street away from the hostel. Yours truly was looking at the map upside down. So I completely lost my bearings, despite having a morning coffee, completely lost the bearings. I was looking at this whole thing upside down, and we had to trek back about half an hour to go back to where we'd been dropped off to then go into the hostel. By this stage, I say hostel, homestay. By this stage, we're fucked. We're so tired. We are absolutely knackered. We've dropped the bags off, and we basically said, bollocks to this. Let's go to the thermal springs. How do we get there? Figured out that we could get a bus down to the thermal springs. Into the swimming gear. Off we went into the thermal baths. It's about £2.50 to get in. Relatively quiet. It was really good. And we got changed, showered and whatnot, and getting into they have different stages of baths. So, start off with a relatively cool one. And I think the hottest one you can get in was about 38 degrees. And trust me, that was roasting. We'd basically just gone for the hottest one. We'd gone in, we toe dipped into the hottest one. And, it's roasting, surprise, surprise. And we've gone up to the side. And, just imagine you've got three of you. You're standing up in a really hot pool. It's tall enough so you can sort of rest your elbows down on the side, put your head down. You've got three of us in the line. We're chatting to each other very briefly. And then next thing you know, I kid you not, we woke up about an hour later. It transpired what happened was we'd started talking, and where this water was so hot, we'd just all fallen asleep. Thankfully, we'd all fallen asleep, resting our heads on our elbows out of the pool while standing in the pool. But we just fallen asleep. Absolutely incredible. We looked like lobsters when we got out. You got head and shoulders, as white as a surrender flag. And then, the rest of our bodies just looked like lobsters. We had a right old laugh about that. Went back into town, had some food, and slept like babies, really, for the rest of the evening. And that was Salto. We had a good experience in Salvador purely because we had a great time in the baths. But getting to Salvador from Paraguay was relatively straightforward in the end, but being stuck 9 hours at a bus station because you haven't quite thought things through, really not ideal. We could have been there a day earlier if we'd have left Paraguay earlier rather than leave at about midday as we did. But anyway, it is what it is. It was what it was. I mean, the following day we'd be parting ways. Ewan was big on his motorbikes. He would be taking his motorbike and going south, where we would try to figure out how on earth to get across the northern plains of Uruguay, which, remember, the Lonely Planet said was impossible to do at the time. So join us for next week's episode, where we'll find out if we made it across the northern plains of Uruguay. Hasta luego.